All right, welcome everybody to the 8th installment of ANCO. My name is Joe Nickel. Joining me is my partner of the Yard and Company, Kevin Wright. Yard is all about using place to solve problems, and we created ANCO as a limited discussion series with people actively addressing the jobs to be done created by COVID-19 and the pandemic. Our previous guests have included retail experts, developers, nonprofits, street designers, zoning experts, and place managers who are all working in new ways to respond to the crisis. In all cases, we have focused on those people that are pulling together not to get us back to the old normal, but to boldly move us forward toward the new one. I'm really excited about today's guest. Rebekah Kik and I go back for, I think, over a decade now, if that's right, Rebekah. And now in her role as the planning director of the City of Kalamazoo, she is leading bold new initiatives to carry that city forward. Rebekah, welcome.
Thank you so much, Joe and Kevin.
Well, let's just jump right into it. We've had the pleasure of working with you and seeing some of the city through your eyes pre-pandemic. But where are you now, and how have you adjusted personally to the changing world?
Well, I did have the boost of actually purchasing a new home at the end of December. So once we were quarantined, it actually gave us a huge excuse to unpack, which I was anticipating taking at least 3 years, to get settled in. So we actually settled into our new home a lot more quickly, and I got that home office set up much more quickly than I had anticipated as well. So, I'm trying to get the silver lining out of this. I have to say, the first week of trying to work from home, becoming a homeschooling mom as well at the exact same time was extremely challenging. Trying to get that structure back into kind of the family life was a tough entry. But now that we are so far into this and so many weeks, and school's over now, and I've been trying to go back into the office 1 day a week, that is extremely challenging. I am so well kind of equipped at home now that I love working from home. So it's actually harder to go into the office now. But I miss the project work. So that's been the hardest hit part of my work, is the engagement and the project work. The tasks are easy. So
well, and you guys have an energetic team there we've had a great pleasure of working with. How has it been working with your team across distance?
Yeah, we do so many Zoom calls per day. We've also snuck in some really great patio meetings where, the three of us can kind of come around a big table, wear our masks, and get together. Because some work, trying to do map work on a Zoom call, it just feels insane. And you feel like the pressure of, not having the Sharpie and not having the trace paper and all of that when you're such a tactical thinker. I think that this virtual platform has just been horrible.
Yeah, Kevin and I were just lamenting the loss of our whiteboard room where we get together with our team. Because you're right, doing that over a Google Doc is a different experience altogether.
Yes.
A lot gets lost in translation. Zooming out a little bit, how would you describe the scene in Kalamazoo, both kind of early on in the pandemic, and then what's the scene like now?
I think early on, particularly around the bigger project work, our street designs project, marijuana ordinances, fair housing ordinances, kind of all of these big community engagement projects that we had going on. I think we tried to dive in right away and go, how are we going to do business without pausing? What are we going to do? How are we going to Zoom this? Are we going to do a town hall? We started recording videos of ourselves, almost very talk show-like, over PowerPoints. We started repeating those meetings, you know, on a projects page. We started posting the boards, you know, trying to create this same engagement experience online. And not only was the staff work just an incredible lift, just a huge lift, but I can't really say that it was super successful for the community either. I think we were so focused on not pausing that we missed the bigger picture. Maybe it's okay to pause. Maybe it's okay not to do some things. Or maybe you're going to get certain types of outreach done, but you're not going to get the big citywide stuff. You're going to get that survey you wanted, but are there other ways that you can engage? I kind of say, you know, look, how are we being equitable to the residents that we want to be involved? And maybe we just need to print out some paper. Maybe we just need to do some walking audits and some paper and just have people do more one-on-one engagement with themselves and their family, and then give us that feedback, as opposed to trying to reach out to a massive amount of people with one platform. So I think that was early on, trying to get to everybody, and then through that experience, shifting it and going, what can we do for the individual or for the family? And then as we gather from each of them, then we can put it into the greater context.
Have you, Rebekah, have you seen any really creative reactions or interventions from people or families or businesses or even resident groups that have surprised you or helped you start rethinking how you engage with people during these times and beyond?
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to some of both the census outreach that we've been trying to do and with some of the policy work that we're trying to do, is they've really taken the materials, whether it's been things that we've put online or reaching out and saying, hey, could you make me of that survey or that flyer or that map? I'm going to take it and I'm going to present this to my group I can get with. And so I think something exciting that's happened is kind of like this viral bit of information that can just like keep getting passed along to different groups and then make it back to us. Hey. You know, being able to have that replicable meeting kind of piece.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that maybe this is a moment, because city staff or even consultants and others are not able to do as much as we used to do ourselves, that we're starting to see, as Lauren said last week in our last week's episode, she said it's like the community PhD, that the people on the ground actually are the experts in a lot of this work, and they really just need to be given the tools to do it. And then on the business side, I've sort of seen that as getting out of their way to some extent to remove some of the red tape to allow them to do the things they need to do to do carry out delivery or spatial distance for diners or for dining. So it's really, that's kind of an optimistic, positive take from some of this.
Yeah, and I'm also hoping that some of those interventions that we've followed a lot of the other cities with taking the off-street parking requirements, taking that through our planning commission and our city commission. So no off-street parking requirements until November. I think we did a temporary stay. And what will that show that business? I'm really curious to touch base later and be able to go, man, we get to restructure our whole parking code now based on this. This is an awesome pilot, right? We've changed our sign code in terms of, where you can have sandwich boards. We've changed.
Did we lose you, Rebekah?
Either that or she's holding very still.
was getting really good with the parking reform.
Sure. She'll come back.
Well, we can pause for a commercial break. Thank you to all of you that have joined with the time change last minute.
Yeah, I would say I was gonna maybe if anybody wants to. Ooh, we lost her completely.
She'll come back.
Yeah, she can rejoin. I was gonna.
This could be the shortest Anco ever.
It's the last of the series, so not a bad time for it to happen. I was gonna ask her, and maybe if anyone in the chat room wants to jump in to kill some time here, from her perspective, what she's doing to I guess prepare to make some of those policies more permanent.
Yeah.
Like, is it interviewing business owners, residents? Is it photographing the results and of what removing the off-street parking requirement or the signage requirements yields? It's kind of interesting.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you answer that for
her? Hold on, let me switch to a virtual background like hers. I mean, that's what I don't know. I would be preparing myself to have as much data as possible leading up to the moment whenever we hit it where we are to think about putting things back to normal and what putting pieces back to normal looks like.
Crisis response transitions into being advocacy for change. And I liked her term, the forced pilot. Obviously we use tactical urbanism so people can see something that's maybe controversial or they haven't seen before. Now we're all being forced to see something that maybe we didn't even want to see. And some of it isn't so bad. So what sticks around, both off street with like the parking and stuff that she was talking about. But, Kalamazoo has just bought back a big chunk of its streets from the state of Michigan. And they were in the process or are in the process of rethinking streets. How does this start to inform that?
Well, should we start calling on people in attendance?
Yeah, she just texted me. Let me see what she's saying.
See, who could we pick on from the attendee crowd?
Oh, people are just leaving in droves all of a sudden.
Where are you guys going?
Hey, come back. There's Kevin Kunak, I see he's on the line, or Megan O'Hara.
You can't leave now, Megan.
I'm going to allow both of them to talk.
Oh, you did that. Okay.
Hey, Keith, are you there? Keith, you're permitted to talk too.
Have you unmuted them? Oh, that's cool.
I'm going to unmute.
This is Megan. Can you guys hear me?
We're going to turn this into a group conversation.
Hey, this is Kevin. Hey, Megan, what's up?
Hi.
No small talk.
So I have a question. Do you guys have a sense of which cities are doing coordinated approaches for supporting the restaurants and outdoor dining and pedestrian space versus which ones are doing it more piecemeal?
Yeah, I mean
that's a good question. I'd be interested in that too, because Pittsburgh is just like can I swear?
It's a mess.
It's a mess here. It's a mess.
Cincinnati is in the latter for sure, where it's it's overregulated in my opinion, but it's sort of an application process, like email this person and then apply for it. It's not being thought of on the district level with coordination.
We don't have a map that kind of documents that which cities are coordinated, what others are not. I would say that the default, though, whether it's coordinated or not, is putting it on the back of businesses, particularly restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a pattern that's happening at a national scale too, right? The federal government is basically pushing a lot of the guidance to the states. The states in the public health world are then issuing guidance often the same time that we, the general public, hear it. The businesses and the impacted business sectors are learning about it at the same time. And so like, you know, you may be in a particular industry and find out with a week's notice that you can open up again on a Friday or something, or a Monday, and you have to scramble. And there's not a lot of, there's states are quick to issue kind of bullet points about spatial distancing and that kind of thing, and health checks. There is very little guidance happening around the spatial implications of that, and thinking through how a business district or a downtown works. I'd say there's some exceptions to that, though. As clunky as Cincinnati's has been, at least it was issued as a citywide program. Downtown, being that it's downtown, was first to react. Government or neighborhoods are starting to think about it as well. Norfolk, Virginia, where we're working quite a bit, actually we're headed there Friday, has probably done the most comprehensive program. We actually gave our CNU, one of our CNU sessions last week, I guess it was, or 2 weeks ago, dealt with that. They're using their CARES Act funding really in a smart way to leverage all that. I'm sure there are other cities. I just haven't seen any to the extent that Norfolk is doing it. And then there's the whole slow streets movement, like what Oakland and Minneapolis and New York will eventually get there, who are basically creating green ribbons or necklaces throughout their city of slow streets and safe streets.
Yeah, I guess what we're seeing in Pittsburgh is that, you know, DOMI, our Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, has a great guideline on how to start implementing some of these initiatives vis-a-vis business districts. But I think the administration and the political powers that be is putting that kind of onus on the business districts themselves to kind of organize this, and then the council members are kind of organizing the feedback sessions, and they can't push anything through because obviously they're elected officials and they need donation money and all that kind of stuff. So at least what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, Walnut Street, which is like your typical 1 to 3 scale business district, Joe, Megan, you're familiar with this. We have 3 entities. We have the large landowners who have national tenants, and so they don't want anything to change because they don't want to lose either national tenants, or they think that they may lose, this gives those tenants cause to break their lease. We have the smaller retail people who don't want to lose any parking. And then we have the restaurants who are like, we need the space. You know, DOMI again put out this study where a typical Pittsburgh parking space, you can fit 2 tables. That's about 8 people max. That doesn't even go anywhere near reaching occupancy for restaurants. So we're kind of in this battle between these 3 different entities, and it's kind of a stalemate right now. Although the Apple store on Walnut took over like 3 parking spaces for their queuing space, and you know, the apocalypse hasn't happened. Like no one has stopped coming shopping on Walnut Street. And it looks like restaurants are doing okay with the space that they have, but you know, I still don't, at least in my cohort of friends, we don't have like a very, we're not interested in going into restaurants quite as of yet. We're still more interested in visiting restaurants on the street. So that's some of the challenges we're having. It seems like at least in downtown Pittsburgh, that has a stronger bid, they're able to kind of take over some streets and turn them into like seating areas and car-free zones.
Yep. Yeah, we've
the challenge of even doing the test, like even doing a test on Walnut Street that we saw in some of your previous presentations, it's hard even to try to get that, just to do like a 5-hour test on the weekend. There's just a lot of pushback on that.
I would wonder on a street like Walnut, just to stick with that one, if there's an opportunity to just close many of the side streets that tee into it.
That was one of the proposals. Yeah. So right now there's a survey out. If we close some of those streets to tee into it, or we close maybe a block or 2, or it's maybe just on the weekend or something. And Rebekah's back. And
she's back. All right, I'm going to mute everybody again. This is actually a fun little diversion from our normal format. So thanks everybody for being part of the room. Rebekah, welcome back.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
Hey, this is part of the territory.
Part of the virtual territory, that's right.
Now the audience is much more involved, so they're going to enjoy with questions.
Yay.
They're putting their pitchforks down as we speak, and they're really interested in hearing more from you. I think where we left off is you were talking about how the city was being supportive from putting a stay on off-street parking requirements and wondering I liked your term forced pilot, what people are learning from this forced pilot, and what is the city learning from its businesses, and what are businesses learning from a different way of doing business that may stick around for a while? What are some of the longer term policy processes or even kind of regulatory standards that could change as a result of this in Kalamazoo?
So the parking requirements is one piece of it, right? I love that not only from the city side, so in terms of like public works and traffic engineers and things like that, and their lovely green books, but also the business owners themselves, like so that they are actually getting a bit of education about their customers rather than their expectations, because their expectation is, oh, every single one of my customers drives in their own vehicle, and so therefore I need one space for every one person that could possibly visit me. So I really love that the business owner gets educated in this scenario as well. The other part was signage, so using sandwich boards. You know, if you've visited any kind of establishments lately, you know, there's protocols, there's their hours, there's if it's appointment only, you know, there's like 10 different signs about what you need to do or how you need to be when you enter this place. And of course, our signage restrictions have kind of gone out the window as well. And we're allowing people to do more outdoor pieces, more sandwich boards. Again, I think in terms of what people want, they want a really predictable environment right now and really understand like how they need to be there. Outdoor dining too. Again, this was always that scary space for our public services and right-of-way coordinators. You know, you got to have your little 10 by 10 box. And now we've blown up the box. We're taking over parking spaces on street. We're making, you know, longer spaces. We're doing public seating as well as seating for the restaurants. And so again, I think this is another space where restaurants can get comfortable with things that their customers need, as well as city staff not be so married to what standards they thought were also, you know, kind of keeping this tight line for them. Like we made them up, guys. Like we can remake them as well. And so this is giving us that moment to go, ooh, what can truly be remade from some of these temporary situations?
Yeah, no, we had a phrase before the pandemic about retail, because everybody was wondering before, you know, with online, is retail over? Is the apocalypse upon us? And, you know, our notion has always been this idea of triple fronted retail, where you have to have a really great in-person experience, physical experience when you're in a place. You have to increasingly be mobile and go to where your customers are and popping up where they are. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be online. And the pandemic really, I think, challenged a lot of traditional retail thinking around only doing one or two of those things, and has really accelerated the adoption of touchless pay and POS and that kind of thing. In addition to rethinking how micro distribution happens, how customers feel safe, how they get in and out of your space. The walk-up window is a thing now again, which is beautiful.
I love it.
And it's really pushing a lot of creativity down to individual operators and property owners to make all that work. While you were out, Megan, who you know from Pittsburgh, asked a great question around the idea of comprehensively thinking through a reopening strategy, rather than just saying, you businesses do this, you businesses can do this, it's up to you. What have you seen in Kalamazoo, or what have you all been talking about from a comprehensive and stitching together all this creativity to make place on a spatially distanced district scale? Is that something that is kind of a moving object for you guys? Are you moving towards that direction, or?
So yeah, what we did was it was led, some conversations were led by DDA, our Downtown Development Authority, and they broke groups into restaurants, retail, and other services, and then comprehensively looked at what they all needed. Here's all the common elements, and then here's what specifically restaurants needed, specifically retail, specifically service industries. And that lifted up, again, that idea about a district, or, because everybody needed the distance, right? Everybody needed the extra space. And so we created a petition that you could do with your fellow retail neighbors, and then get the street closed. Do one petition for right of way on the sidewalk, where again we knew that there were going to be multiple people that, let's say you've got 10 businesses in a row on your main street. Are you going to make each one of those businesses come in on their own and file some kind of petition, or is there a way that you can think about it comprehensively and go, hey, would this assist all of you? And so we started with that, mapping out that piece of it as a district, then approached them, then said, okay, look, we couldn't get a hold of maybe 2 of these business owners. Can you guys then facilitate what you think you need between the 10 of you, and then come back to us? No permits, no fee. We'll supply the snow fencing or the water fill barriers or whatever's necessary. And just get it done for you. We've moved a lot of furniture, again, in terms of that comprehensive strategy. If you live in a downtown like we have, we've got a park bench every 60 feet, kind of like along a space. And that doesn't work when you're trying to like clear space too. So we've rearranged a lot of park benches. We've rearranged a lot of flower pots to get that district created. But with everybody's input, we kind of marked out the district. Another thing that the state of Michigan is doing in terms of liquor licensing is they're super relaxing, and with your DDA, you can basically draw a ring around an area, and you can then move from place to place with your drinks. So it gives more flexibility for the idea of both individual restaurant seating. You're going to sit down there and you're going to have your cocktails or you're going to have your dinner, but it also gives you the opportunity to just walk up to the window or go to the food truck and get your dinner or your cocktail and still have outdoor seating that's in this public area, but still sanctioned by the Liquor Commission and safely bounded.
That's really incredible. We've seen different states handle that differently. So it sounds like in Michigan, in the Kalamazoo experience, you're not necessarily having to rely on, say, the special event mechanism to create these districts. You have enough wiggle room through what the state's created and what you all are supporting to actually create a sustained environment that people can safely get together 6 feet apart. Really smart. And it sounds like also when you think about the detailing of a park or a street, you all are confronting head on the need to be nimble and flexible. The idea that we have planted all these things into the ground, and when we need to change things around because the pandemic has changed things around for us, then we got to really work hard to get those things moved. So this idea of creating a flexible street, I think it's really, really important, as well as flexible interventions. Today's conditions relative to the pandemic are one thing. We may move backwards before we get to move forwards again. So this idea of being able to pick up, redeploy, all really smart. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think another part of that flexibility is that petition that we're trying to do. So again, it's not just about like what we've heard at that moment and that one time that we got to do the listening session, but it's kind of like this open mechanism for somebody to go, oh, you know what? I've got another idea here. Let me see if I can get some people on board and run it by the city and see what we can do next.
Yeah, I love the idea of self-organizing at a local, hyper-local level, and then taking it to the city and saying, city, we know you can be a good partner. Here's how we think you can in this case. So you mentioned that in downtown. Have any other areas in Kalamazoo besides downtown completed and executed on the petition?
So we have another business district that's just outside of the downtown in what's called our Vine neighborhood. And I know they have been working and organizing on the next sort of level of that petition as well. They're the only other neighborhood that I know of so far that has kind of thought about that.
And how are you getting the word out in marketing? Is it kind of just word of mouth, or is this a pretty formalized program? And then like the follow-up question is, how do you fund that? What are you funding that out of as a city?
Mm-hmm. Not formalized, really just very grassroots, just looking for people to have the idea and then go, okay, I know I need to run this by the city. Like, what are you guys doing? The downtown has been pretty vocal about like what's going on there. And in terms of our neighborhood activator, like Katie, and then our city planner, Christina, every time we talk to any neighborhood, we're like, oh, by the way, look at what's going on over here. And if you guys want to do that, like, let us know and we'll get you going on it. So what was your second question?
Well, my second question was, are you funding this out of your general fund or operations? Like, how does it all come together for you guys as a department?
Right. So we got two mechanisms for funding. One is we got an additional $928,000 of community development block grant funding just for COVID support. Now you could use that in about 5 different buckets. And one of them is to sustain small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so when you talked earlier, like about the walk-up window and the touchless pay systems, do you need extra shelving because you're doing deliveries and therefore you're staging things or you're having people pick things up like Grubhub or Uber Eats or things like that. And so you need greater areas of flexibility where you can start to stash things. We are paying for that out of our block grant fund. That's where we allocated a big chunk of money. We also have what's called the Foundation for Excellence, and we had a business development fund through that. We allocated $300,000 into a micro enterprise grant fund, and that was for businesses 10 employees or less. And you could get a $5,000 to $10,000 grant. Again, I mean, you could use that for paycheck protection. You could use that for any kind of bridge funding, or you could use that for touchless pay systems, buying sanitizers, getting one of those plexiglass pieces built, so that you could serve people, the walk-up window, anything that was going to keep you in business. And then we got a call from the Consumers Energy Foundation, and they matched our fund with an additional $200,000. So we ended $500,000, and we're able to assist 40 businesses with that infrastructure.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really great.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, even with the hiccup, Rebekah. It was a fun opportunity to pull in members in the room. We had never done that before, so we might remember that. That might be a standing part of this. We're coming up on a half hour. We wanted to go a little long just to catch up a little bit longer, but really want to thank you. This was our last installment as in this current format of this limited series discussion, and I think this was a really awesome way to close it out. To those of you watching both now and streaming it later, stay tuned. Check back regularly. We are actively thinking about what the next chapter of ANCO looks like as a media entity. So this has been a really fun experiment for us over the last 8 episodes. We've had great guests like Rebekah, and really wish you all the best. This was great.
Thanks again, guys, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you be well. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Take care, everybody.